Hi, my name is Shannon Stuckey and I am currently a third year PhD student in the Translational Neuropathology Laboratory here at the University of Adelaide. So just a little bit of how I got to where I am today. So coming out of high school, I had a real drive for making a difference. I didn't really know where that was going to take me, but I knew I wanted to do something within the medical field. So I started doing my bachelor in health and medical sci, and I was kind of torn between going down the forensic side or going into neuroscience, because I really liked both of them throughout my bachelor degree. So when it came to picking an honours project, I was again tossing up between forensics and neuroscience, and that's when I spoke to my supervisor now, Associate Professor Renee Turner, and she proposed a stroke project, and I ultimately decided to go down that route, and I haven't really regretted it since then. So as soon as I started my honours project, I kind of fell in love with research, and I knew pretty much from day one that this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So I'm now doing a very similar project in my PhD, so I'm looking at long-term post-stroke outcomes. Following stroke, we actually see this phenomenon turn secondary neurodegeneration. So essentially, when you have a stroke, you get an infarct core, which is essentially the core of damage from following stroke. But what we also see long-term following stroke is damage in areas that are distal but connected to this infarct zone, so they weren't initially affected by the stroke itself. So we don't really have much of an understanding of what caused this, but we do know that it can actually lead to increased inflammation in the brain and essentially lead on to long-term outcomes such as cognitive impairment and even dementia. So we really want to understand what is driving this secondary neurodegeneration so that we can essentially treat these post-stroke outcomes and hopefully not see post-stroke dementia. So I particularly look at one secondary outcome that we think may be driving this secondary neurodegeneration, and that is inflammation. So early on after a stroke, we do see an increased inflammation in the infarct core, but we also now see it in these distal sites. So even before we see neuronal damage in these areas, we also see this increase in inflammation. So as such, we do believe that this is kind of the driving force for this secondary neurodegeneration, and as such, that is essentially what my project is looking at. So a lot of secondary neurodegeneration studies look quite early on following stroke still, so they're looking about 14 days to 28 days, whereas secondary neurodegeneration isn't actually seen in patients until at least a month following stroke. So my project is really exciting because we're looking very long-term following stroke. So I'm looking 12 months and 15 months following stroke, and so we're going to be looking at mainly the inflammation, but also neurodegeneration markers, and we're also looking at the functional outcomes. So do we see increased cognitive decline in these stroke patients, and is it associated with neuronal damage in these secondary neurodegeneration regions?
So can you tell us a little bit about doing honours and any advice you might give someone who is considering doing the same?
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, honours was really exciting for me. It kind of provided my love for research. So it is a really intensive year. You have a lot of assessments whilst doing a lot of research. In terms of advice, I'd probably say as long as you're passionate, it's definitely the biggest thing that you have. So it is very hard. You are here pretty much full-time hours doing research. Like I said, there's also a lot of assessments, so it's about juggling research with those assessments. So you really have to have that driving passion for what you're doing and to kind of love what you're doing.
Did you find it was important to find a good network of support people within?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely helps being in the lab environment because you do have such a big team. So I did my honours with Bella, which was really great because she was a first year PhD student, and she really helped me kind of work out what I was doing and helped me learn all the lab techniques necessary, and was helpful in drafting my research. And yeah, so it's very great having like a big lab environment where you can work in a team.
So can you tell us, what's your favourite part of being a researcher?
So strangely, I actually really like the writing component. So I love analysing data and then putting it into a journal paper. I love looking at what research is currently going on and kind of how we can bridge the gap and how our study is different to other studies, and then obviously talking about our data and what it means in the broader research. So yeah, that's really my favourite part, is writing it all up.
And how much of your time do you think you spend on the writing versus being in the lab? Like, what's that sort of?
Well, a lot of my time has been spent writing, because my project is so long term, so I haven't gotten any data yet. So a lot of my time has been spent writing, and I have actually already submitted a journal paper, which is really exciting. But now it's definitely going to change from writing into heaps more lab work, which I am very excited to do as well.
And so can you tell us, what do you like doing in your spare time outside of uni?
So surprisingly, I don't know how I manage it all, but I actually do a lot of stuff outside of uni. So I actually competitively dance, so I have been doing that since I was 6 years old. So I do multiple competitions throughout the year, dance 2 nights a week. I also play social basketball once a week. And then outside of that, I also go to the gym a lot, so I'm a very active person. But when I'm not doing activities, I like to obviously hang out with my friends, or I'm a very big reader as well.
And what kind of dancing do you do?
So this year I am doing pom, so it's kind of a mix between like pop dancing with like pom-poms, so it's very fast-paced and very energetic. And then I also do lyrical, so that's kind of more like the slow songs.
Nice. Well, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it.